In the opulent world of sprawling estates, designer gowns, and bank accounts with more zeros than you can imagine, appearances can be as deceptive as they are dazzling. Welcome to the twisted tale of Ethan Hayes, a millionaire whose polished image belies the turbulent secrets lurking beneath the marble floors of his Beverly Hills mansion. A mistress in a pristine white dress emerges from the shadows, intent on capturing both his heart and his fortune. Meanwhile, his pregnant wife, Olivia, draped in black like an avenging angel, has her own designs on burying them all. Prepare yourself for betrayal, obsession, and an ending that no one sees coming. Twilight draped the Los Angeles skyline in a gentle purple haze, every glass tower twinkling under the final rays of a dying sun. In the heart of this luminous city stood the Hayes Estate, a modern architectural marvel of steel, glass, and limestone perched atop the rolling hills of Beverly Crest. From the outside, it was everything anyone could dream of: pristine lawns, an Olympic-sized swimming pool that glittered like liquid sapphire, and a sweeping driveway lined with carefully curated palm trees. Yet, behind the estate's immaculate gates, lay a household brimming with secrets and tension. Ethan Hayes, known to business associates simply as Ethan, had made a name for himself in the tech industry before successfully leaping into real estate investments. He was featured on the cover of Forbes last year, proclaiming him one of the youngest self-made millionaires on the West Coast. A Harvard dropout with a vision that rivaled the likes of Elon Musk, Ethan turned his small startup into a Silicon Valley powerhouse. The word failure never seemed to exist in his dictionary. Inside the estate, Ethan's wife, Olivia Hayes, moved through the grand halls with a delicate hand resting on her growing belly. At 6 months pregnant, her figure remained as elegant as ever, clothed in a simple black maternity gown, tailored to perfection. Olivia was once a celebrated fashion model whose face had graced the covers of Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. After marrying Ethan, she had stepped out of the spotlight to focus on family life, philanthropy, and supporting her husband's ambitions. But the glow in Olivia's eyes, that had once charmed the fashion world, had begun to dim. Rumors of her husband's infidelity gnawed at her peace of mind. Whispers in the estate, from the housekeeping staff to the stables, hinted that a mysterious woman had been seen frequenting Ethan's private office late into the night. Olivia's best friend, Chloe Miller, had even spotted them at an upscale restaurant in Malibu not long ago. At first, Olivia dismissed these stories as malicious gossip. However, a woman's intuition is rarely wrong. That evening, as Olivia rested in an ornate drawing room, she clutched her smartphone, scrolling through social media posts from her modeling days. She paused at a photograph of her and Ethan at a runway event, both of them radiant, unstoppable, and madly in love. Her throat tightened at the memory. "I can't let this go on," she murmured softly, one hand pressed to her growing belly. A swirl of apprehension merged with fierce resolve. She had always believed that love required work, compromise, and forgiveness. However, if the rumors were true that Ethan had a mistress, she would do whatever it took to protect her child's future. Beyond the estate's glass walls, a sleek Mercedes-Benz pulled up to the gate. At that very moment, behind tinted windows, the figure of a woman dressed entirely in white came into view. Little did she know, every move she made was setting the stage for an explosive drama that would change all their lives forever. Ethan Hayes was a man who thrived in the spotlight. Even before his fortune skyrocketed, he had an indefinable charisma that turned heads wherever he went. It wasn't just his striking appearance, tall, athletic build, and chiseled features, but his unwavering confidence that captured people's attention. During a round of golf at the Los Angeles Country Club, he could be found discussing complicated mergers while sinking birdies. His easy grin fooling onlookers into thinking he was simply enjoying a leisurely afternoon. As one of the city's most sought-after entrepreneurs, Ethan was often invited to high-profile events and lavish soirees. Red carpets and VIP galas were second nature to him. He found himself shoulder to shoulder with celebrities like Jennifer Aniston at the Beverly Hills Hotel or shaking hands with fellow tech maven Elon Musk at private fundraisers. His brand of wealth was discreet yet undeniable, hand-stitched Italian suits, a Mont Blanc pen tucked into his breast pocket, and a minimalist Patek Philippe watch that gleamed under the camera flashes at charity dinners. But beneath the veneer of this enviable existence was a gnawing sense of restlessness. Business expansions, international deals, and philanthropic ventures kept Ethan busy enough to appear fulfilled. Yet, the more he achieved, the more he felt something intangible slipping through his fingers. Power and money had been his twin obsessions since leaving Harvard. But after reaching the pinnacle of success, he faced a restless emptiness he could not name. In the early days of his marriage to Olivia, Ethan believed he had found a true partner, a woman who matched his ambition and refined his rough edges. She was his anchor when he found himself on the brink of exhaustion, juggling endless board meetings and product launches. However, somewhere along the way, perhaps around the time the business soared to dizzying new heights, he lost track of what truly mattered. He still cared for Olivia, but their worlds had begun to drift apart, driven by different schedules, different pressures, and different confidences. Friends warned him in half-joking tones to watch out for gold diggers who might try to charm him for money. But if there was a vulnerability in Ethan, it was not for cheap opportunists. He craved attention and excitement, something that whispered of danger and risked the same impulses that fueled his empire building. And that was precisely how Isabella Rossi slithered into his life, offering him the very thrill that was missing. Olivia had always been the embodiment of poise and grace, a luminous presence who brightened any room she entered. Yet, to Ethan, that comforting familiarity had slowly, almost imperceptibly, morphed into routine. And routine was the very antithesis of the entrepreneurial adrenaline he so desperately craved. The thrill of the new and the unpredictable. Isabella, in stark contrast, presented a spark, a forbidden fruit dangling enticingly before him. It was this intoxicating lure that began to overshadow the sacred marital vows he had once cherished so deeply. So, even as the cameras flashed around him and the tabloids hailed him as an icon of success, Ethan Hayes was a man caught in a whirlpool of his own cravings and guilt. It was only a matter of time before his carefully constructed facade would buckle under the weight of secrets and betrayal. Isabella Rossi was a name that had circulated in certain elite circles long before she turned her gaze toward Ethan Hayes. Born in a small town in Illinois, she reinvented herself with a zeal few could match. She relocated to Los Angeles in her early 20s, determined to carve out a life far grander than anything she had left behind. With striking green eyes, cascading honey blonde hair, and a body honed by daily Pilates sessions, Isabella could shift effortlessly between demure and seductive, depending on her audience. She first dabbled in modeling, though never reaching the echelon Olivia once commanded. Her foray into acting amounted to bit parts in TV shows, easily forgotten roles. But where Isabella truly excelled was in navigating the labyrinth of wealthy men who frequented LA's high society. She became a regular at the same exclusive clubs, private members-only lounges, and A-list parties that the city's elite adored. While some pegged her as just another social climber, few realized the cold, calculating mind hiding beneath the pretty exterior. Isabella's ambition was single-minded, to ascend into the highest echelons of society by any means necessary. She had learned early on that while beauty opened doors, cunning kept them open. Whether it was reading up on a potential benefactor's favorite hobbies or feigning genuine interest in philanthropic causes, Isabella meticulously researched her targets before making a move. The unpredictability of a man like Ethan Hayes was exactly the challenge that thrilled her. Their paths first crossed at a charity gala in Bel Air for children's cancer research. Isabella arrived alone, looking like a vision in a white silk gown, a contrast to the sea of black tie outfits around her. She spotted Ethan easily. He was the center of attention, exuding confidence as he laughed and chatted with the city's most influential figures, timing her approach to appear spontaneous. Isabella accidentally bumped into him at the bar. The moment their eyes met, she flashed a careful blend of vulnerability and charm. She knew the game well. "Well, hello there," she said with a disarming smile, letting her fingertips graze his hand as she reached for a cocktail napkin. Ethan turned to look at her, momentarily caught off guard by the intensity of her gaze. Their connection was instantaneous, an electric jolt of curiosity on both sides. Over the course of the evening, they exchanged banter about the charity cause, art, and travel. She mentioned her recent trip to the Amalfi Coast, fabricated details sprinkled among real facts to enthrall him. By the end of the night, Ethan found himself both intrigued and bewitched. Isabella's white gown became the symbol of her purity in Ethan's eyes, a stark contrast to the moral ambiguity coursing through their conversation. He did not suspect that this same woman would soon become the biggest threat to his marriage and, quite possibly, to his entire empire. Isabella had found her mark, and she intended to strike with precision. Life at the Hayes estate evolved as if under an invisible countdown. The staff sensed a tension in the air that they could not fully articulate. Olivia walked the corridors with an unspoken heaviness, while Ethan's demeanor grew increasingly distracted. Meetings ran later. Business trips stretched longer. The hush that followed whenever Olivia entered a room felt charged with anxious speculation. Despite her husband's claimed innocence when confronted with sly questions, "I'm just swamped with work, dear," he'd say. Olivia's instinct screamed otherwise. Every time Ethan's phone buzzed and he rushed to check the screen, her heart clenched. She tried to maintain composure, but the sense of betrayal chiseled away at her serenity. Her unborn child was now her priority, and she refused to tolerate illusions that could harm her growing family. One afternoon, during a light rain that slicked the estate's manicure gardens, Olivia decided to investigate on her own. She navigated the hall leading to Ethan's private office, a domain she rarely intruded upon. The heavy oak door was slightly ajar, and inside, she heard her husband speaking in hushed tones. She paused, heart pounding. "This weekend," Ethan's voice carried through the crack in the door. "I'll see if I can get away without raising suspicion." Olivia felt her stomach twist. Clutching her chest, She retreated, not wanting to hear more, not wanting to break entirely. She pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. Quietly, she hurried back to her suite, each step echoing through corridors that seemed ominously still. Later that evening, as thunder rumbled across the sky, Ethan mentioned an urgent business trip to New York. In the dimly lit dining room, he seemed uneasy, avoiding her eyes. Olivia's expression remained composed. She agreed with a gentle nod, but her heart was already formulating a plan. If Isabella Rossi was indeed the cause of her husband's sudden secretiveness, Olivia intended to discover the truth and safeguard her child's future at any cost. Meanwhile, miles away in her chic Hollywood apartment, Isabella finalized the details of a lavish weekend getaway. She had convinced Ethan to meet her at a private villa in Napa Valley, a place known for its romantic vineyards and million-dollar sunsets. In her mind, she was inches away from capturing Ethan completely. Once that happened, she believed Olivia's days in Ethan's life would be numbered. In the same breath of excitement, Isabella also faced a flicker of impatience. Would Ethan actually leave his wife, the celebrated Olivia Hayes, to start a new life with her? She had invested so much in this pursuit: time, energy, even her own moral qualms. The more she leaned into this twisted relationship, the more she demanded a return on her investment. The skies outside the Hayes mansion crackled with a fresh wave of thunder. Little did any of them realize that this storm was only the beginning. The stage was set for revelations and confrontations that would test the boundaries of love, loyalty, and one woman's unrelenting thirst for power. Olivia's trust in Ethan was crumbling by the hour. In an effort to find solace and perhaps clarity, she confided in her best friend, Chloe Miller, who was among the few people Olivia still trusted implicitly. They met for lunch at the Polo Lounge in the Beverly Hills Hotel, an old haunt of Olivia's modeling days. The noise of clinking glasses and polite conversation provided a discreet background for a deeply personal discussion. "This can't go on, Chloe," Olivia said, swirling her iced tea listlessly. "I've tried confronting him, but he insists it's all in my head. I can't ignore the evidence anymore. He's so distant, so secretive." Chloe reached out and squeezed Olivia's hand gently. "You're certain there's another woman?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. Olivia nodded. "Yes. The way he avoids my questions. The late-night phone calls. The urgent business trips. It's all a pattern." Chloe pursed her lips in disapproval. "You deserve better, Olivia. Especially now. You need to think about your child's future. Have you considered hiring a private investigator, just to confirm your suspicions?" Though the thought had crossed her mind, Olivia hesitated. She felt a surge of anger mixed with shame. Was this really the life she had signed up for, a marriage overshadowed by suspicion and espionage? Meanwhile, Ethan's corporate world provided him with a convenient alibi. Meetings, acquisitions, and mergers consumed him. He told Olivia he was flying to New York to discuss a new real estate partnership with David Carter, a renowned developer. It was half true. A deal was indeed on the table. But the real impetus for the trip was to carve out time for Isabella, who had demanded a grand romantic gesture. While preparations for the business trip commenced, Ethan found himself plagued by pangs of guilt. He often replayed his wedding vows in his head, seeing Olivia in her luminous white gown, beaming with a love that once felt unbreakable. On certain nights, He fought the urge to confess everything, just to unburden the heaviness in his heart. Yet, each time he recalled Isabella's captivating smile, the thrill she ignited, his resolve to preserve the status quo held firm. Isabella, on her end, sensed Ethan's guilt and used it to her advantage. Late-night texts with sweet nothings, or sometimes strategic panic about her financial woes, worked wonders to keep him wrapped around her finger. The mere mention of a mounting credit card debt or an overdue rent check was enough to see thousands of dollars wired to her bank account. She fashioned herself as the damsel in distress, and Ethan played the knight in shining armor. The dynamic fueled her confidence. Soon, she believed, she would persuade him to sever ties with Olivia altogether. As Olivia finished lunch with Chloe, she decided to pursue a quiet, methodical approach. If her husband refused to be honest, then she would unearth the truth herself. The seeds of doubt had been firmly planted, and they were sprouting into something far darker, a determination that if this mistress in white intended to steal her millionaire husband, Olivia would wear her own shade of black to bury them both. Napa Valley stretched out in rows of lush green vineyards, dotted with grand estates that shimmered under the early summer sun. On a secluded property perched on a gentle hill, Isabella paced the veranda of a rented villa, her figure cloaked in a white linen sundress. She adored the symbolism. White was the color of innocence, of brides, of new beginnings. It was also, in her mind, the perfect camouflage for someone with decidedly impure intentions. Ethan had promised to join her by late afternoon, claiming that he'd convinced his business associates of a short holiday to clear his head. In truth, he used the partial business trip to slip away from Olivia without drawing suspicion. Isabella had prepared everything, a gourmet meal delivered by a private chef, an array of fine wines, and meticulously curated background music. She wanted this getaway to be etched in Ethan's memory as the moment he realized he could not live without her. As the sun dipped lower, the roar of an approaching car engine announced Ethan's arrival. He stepped out wearing casual chinos and a crisp collared shirt, a stark difference from his usual tailored suits. His face lit up when he saw Isabella. For a moment, he allowed himself to be wholly captivated by her relaxed elegance. She glided toward him, the breeze catching her hair in a sunlit halo, offering him the sort of enthusiastic greeting he rarely received at home these days. They shared dinner on the veranda, overlooking the gentle slopes of the vineyard, glasses of Cabernet Sauvignon glinting like garnets in their hands. As the sun set, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold, they talked about Ethan's dreams, his regrets, the pressures he faced. Isabella listened intently, interjecting just enough to keep him going, to make him feel understood and valued. In her presence, Ethan felt like a man unburdened. Later, as night embraced the vineyard and cicadas began their nocturnal chorus, they moved inside. The villa was decorated in a Tuscan style with warm terracotta hues, large wooden beams, and soft candlelight flickering against the walls. Isabella, still in her white dress, looked almost ethereal in the golden glow. In a moment of raw passion, Ethan pulled her close, tangling his fingers in her hair. A part of him whispered that this was wrong, that it was disloyal, that Olivia, his pregnant wife, deserved better. But the whisper grew faint against the overpowering intoxication Isabella provided. Outside, shadows lengthened over the vineyards. as if nature itself disapproved of the union forming behind closed doors. If Ethan and Isabella had been more attentive, they might have noticed a distant figure lurking near the perimeter of the property. Someone determined to record exactly what was transpiring within. Fate was already in motion, setting the stage for a confrontation that would cut through the facade of innocence that Isabella so carefully cultivated. The white dress might symbolize purity, but in the darkness, its brightness served as a beacon, drawing attention to all the hidden sins of those who wore it. Back in Los Angeles, Olivia faced her own storm, determined to confirm Ethan's betrayal. She had quietly hired a private investigator named Mark Sullivan, a discreet but ruthless professional known for unveiling skeletons hidden behind gilded walls. With refined manners and a clinical approach, Mark agreed to tail Ethan and gather proof of his extramarital affair. The day after Ethan's supposed business trip began, Mark traced his flight records and discovered a suspicious detour to Northern California, nowhere near New York. Dressed in an understated navy blazer, Mark traveled up to Napa Valley and located the secluded villa. He spent hours parked at a vantage point, watching the comings and goings through powerful binoculars. It didn't take long before he saw Ethan greeting a woman in white, a woman who looked nothing like Olivia. A high-resolution camera captured images of Ethan and Isabella sharing what was clearly more than just a friendly embrace. The private detective even overheard snippets of conversation as he moved stealthily closer, talk of future plans, murmured sweet nothings, and conspicuous mentions of Olivia as an obstacle. By sunset, Mark had all the incriminating evidence he needed. Olivia's phone buzzed with an incoming call that night. She had been lying awake in the dark, her pregnancy making it difficult to find a comfortable sleeping position. She answered, heart pounding, knowing full well who it would be. "It's Mark," said the low voice on the other end. "I have what you asked for." Olivia felt both relief and dread surge in her chest. "I see. How bad is it?" Mark hesitated before replying. "Let's just say he's definitely not alone. I have photos and a brief video clip. You'll want to see them in person." Olivia's voice wavered slightly. "Then let's meet tomorrow. Text me the place." After the call ended, she pressed a trembling hand to her abdomen, where her baby kicked gently. Tears stung her eyes. This was no longer mere speculation. Her suspicions had been affirmed. She was carrying Ethan's child while he was gallivanting with another woman. Betrayal and heartbreak mingled with a new, startling sense of purpose. She swore in that moment that she would not be a victim in her own marriage. If Ethan was giving his mistress the kind of attention and devotion that should rightfully be hers, Olivia would make sure that both of them faced the consequences. At dawn, as the sun broke over the Los Angeles horizon, Olivia prepared to meet Mark, dressing in a chic black outfit. She studied her reflection in the mirror. Normally, she would never wear all black during the day, but something in her demanded it. A symbolic statement. Perhaps if Isabella wore white to steal her husband, Olivia would wear black to bury the illusions and deceit that threatened her family. She was done waiting passively for her husband to come to his senses. Now, it was her turn to take control of the narrative, and she intended to play her part with the same poise that once made her a world-class model. Olivia sipped her cappuccino in a quiet corner of a discreet cafe in Brentwood, waiting for Mark Sullivan. Morning rays filtered through the large windows, illuminating her black ensemble. Her posture was erect, her face an unreadable mask of calm. The only sign of her internal turmoil was the faint tremble of her hand as she lifted the coffee cup to her lips. Mark arrived right on time, sliding into the seat across from her with a black leather briefcase in tow. His eyes flickered with professional sympathy. He had done this many times, delivering proofs of infidelity to broken spouses. "These are the documents," he said, placing a sealed folder on the table. "Photos. Time-stamped." Olivia's eyes never left the folder. Carefully, she opened it, flipping through each image. Ethan and Isabella holding hands, sipping wine, and even sharing a kiss on the villa's veranda. The last photo was the hardest blow, Ethan leaning in to whisper in Isabella's ear while she giggled in response. It felt like watching her marriage crumple before her eyes. "Thank you," Olivia said quietly. Her voice was steady, even if her heart wasn't. Mark leaned in, lowering his voice. "I can gather more evidence if you need. Their location, financial transactions, anything that could help if you're considering a divorce or settlement." Olivia paused. She thought of her unborn child, her marriage vows, and the empire Ethan had built, an empire she was partly responsible for, having stood by him through countless sacrifices. "I need more than just pictures," she finally said, her eyes cold with resolve. "I want to know everything about her, where she lives, her finances, her history. I also want to know who else she's been involved with. If she thinks she can waltz in and destroy my family, I'll make sure she doesn't leave unscathed." Mark nodded, slipping out a notepad. "I'll start digging right away." Over the next 2 weeks, Mark worked tirelessly, sending Olivia daily updates. The deeper he went, the clearer Isabella's motives became. Bank statements showed hefty deposits arriving from older men whose names rang with wealth and power. Isabella also carried sizable credit card debt, often paid off suddenly by mysterious benefactors. A consistent pattern emerged. She targeted wealthy individuals, formed quick, intense bonds, and extracted large sums of money before moving on to the next mark. To Olivia, it wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. It was about protecting her future, her child's inheritance, and her own dignity. If Ethan was blind to Isabella's cunning, Olivia was not. She decided it was time to face her husband directly, but not in the manner he would expect. Instead of playing the wounded victim, she would orchestrate a scenario so precise that neither Ethan nor Isabella could deny the consequences. She envisioned the confrontation in vivid detail, an unveiling of her evidence, a demonstration of the mistress's duplicity, and the final moment when Ethan realized the full scope of his betrayal. In that moment, Olivia would decide whether to salvage her marriage or walk away with everything she was owed. Her black attire, once a simple stylistic choice, had become a signal of her unwavering determination. She was mourning the illusion of innocence, but she was far from defeated. The Hayes estate buzzed with heightened tension on the evening Olivia chose to set her plan in motion. She had instructed the staff to prepare a small dinner for Ethan's return, the kind of intimate setting that used to rekindle their romance. After weeks of secrecy, he arrived home looking exhausted and strangely a bit apprehensive. Perhaps guilt had finally begun to weigh on him more heavily. Olivia met him at the door wearing an elegant black gown, one that clung to her pregnant figure like a dark, regal cloak. As she glided toward him, Ethan forced a faint smile. He leaned in for a perfunctory kiss, but she pulled back subtly, leading him instead to the dining room. Inside, the table was set for two, candles flickering against polished silverware. Dinner. That's a nice surprise, Ethan said, loosening his tie. He tried to read Olivia's expression, but her features remained inscrutable. They made small talk through the first course. Ethan's eyes flickered around as if expecting something questions. Accusations. A mention of the rumored mistress. When dessert arrived, a rich chocolate mousse, Olivia cleared her throat. I have something to show you, Ethan, she said quietly, withdrawing her phone. His face blanched as she opened an image gallery. Photo after photo flashed by. Him and Isabella at the villa, walking hand in hand, locked in intimate embraces. The color drained from his cheeks. He made no attempt to deny the obvious. Olivia, he began, his voice quavering. She raised a hand to silence him. Don't lie to me anymore. I know her name is Isabella Rossi. I know everything about your affair, and I have the receipts to prove it. Ethan's eyes darted around, looking for an exit from the crushing reality. I was going to tell you, he stammered. Olivia leveled him with a cold stare. When? After our child was born. After she bankrupted you. Or maybe when she moved into my home. He bowed his head, shame dripping from every angle of his posture. I never meant for it to go this far. Olivia's voice was steady as steel. But it did. And now we need to decide what happens next. At that moment, there was a buzz from the front intercom. The butler stepped into the dining room, clearing his throat. Mr. Hayes, a guest is here to see you. She says it's urgent. Olivia's lips curved into a knowing smile. That would be Isabella. I invited her. Ethan's eyes widened in panic. Olivia, what are you doing? She stood, smooth in her black gown. We're going to have a little chat. The three of us. Within minutes, Isabella entered the mansion's grand foyer, dressed conspicuously in a white cocktail dress. She flashed a confident smile, but it faltered when she saw Olivia standing beside Ethan. For a split second, Isabella seemed as if she might bolt. Yet, her ambition compelled her to stay. She had come this far, and she believed she could still manipulate the situation. Olivia gestured to the living room, the silence thick with unspoken threats. Shall we? Thus began the confrontation that would either redeem or destroy them all. The Hayes estate was a masterpiece of architecture and decor. But on this night, its elegance did nothing to soothe the charged atmosphere within. The expansive living room, typically a space of quiet grandeur with its cream-toned sofas, abstract art pieces, and cascading crystal chandelier, had become an arena. Every inch of polished marble, every flicker of candlelight, reflected the tension mounting between three very different people bound together by betrayal. Olivia stood tall near the stone fireplace, her black silk gown flowing like a shadow around her feet, her pregnant belly both a symbol of vulnerability and quiet power. She looked statuesque, regal, like a queen about to hand down judgment. Across the room, Ethan lingered near the grand piano, visibly shaken, his normally composed face marred by exhaustion and panic. And in the entryway, dressed in a white cocktail dress that now seemed jarringly inappropriate, stood Isabella Rossi, confident, calculating, and increasingly out of her depth. Isabella had entered the estate expecting something very different. She imagined Ethan would defend her, maybe even admit his unhappiness, and choose her. She had envisioned a dramatic confrontation. Yes, but one in which she emerged victorious. Instead, What she found was a woman who was not broken, but composed. A woman who had already seen the truth and planned every move accordingly. Isabella Rossi, Olivia said, her voice as calm and sharp as cut glass. So glad you could join us. Isabella's smile faltered. Olivia, she said cautiously, glancing at Ethan. I didn't know you'd be here. Oh, I'm sure you didn't, Olivia replied coolly. But that's the thing about homes. You can never be sure who's waiting on the other side of the door. Ethan cleared his throat, stepping forward as if to mediate. Maybe we should all sit down. No, Olivia said without looking at him. We'll stand. This won't take long. Isabella tried to recover some ground, straightening her spine and putting on the practiced charm that had seduced more than one wealthy man. I didn't come here to cause trouble. Ethan and I, we just need to talk. Alone. Alone, Olivia echoed. She turned toward her husband. Do you still want to be alone with her? Ethan, after everything you've seen, everything I've shown you. Ethan looked like a man aged 10 years in 10 minutes. No, I don't know what I want right now. Olivia turned back to Isabella. He's not the only one who's been doing some soul searching. Isabella shifted uneasily. I don't understand what this is about. Let me help you, Olivia said. She walked to a nearby side table and lifted a slim, dark folder. She opened it and pulled out several photographs, holding one up for Isabella to see. It was a photo of her and Ethan at the villa in Napa, wine in hand, his fingers brushing her cheek. Isabella's breath caught. Another photo followed, the two of them kissing under the string lights of the veranda. Then another, her lounging poolside in her white dress while Ethan brought her a drink. You've been followed, Isabella hissed, fury rising. Documented, Olivia corrected. You're quite photogenic. I'll give you that. And consistent. You used the same tactics with William Anderson, didn't you? And James Peterson before that. Isabella's jaw clenched. You went through my past. I had someone go through it for me, Olivia replied. A very thorough investigator. We traced everything. Your financial records, your online aliases, even your applications to private dating services. You left a trail, Isabella, and now it's caught up with you. Ethan turned toward Isabella, his voice hollow. Is that true? You did this to other men. Isabella tried to laugh it off, but came out brittle. They were lonely. Like you. I gave them something they needed. It's not a crime to connect with people. It is when you defraud them, Olivia said. We have copies of the wire transfers, screenshots of your messages, and statements from at least 2 of your former lovers who are ready to talk to the police. Isabella's voice broke, suddenly shrill. You're trying to paint me like some criminal. You did that yourself, Olivia replied. But tonight isn't about your criminal history. It's about what you did to my family. You thought you could come into my life, wrap yourself in white like some tragic heroine, and steal what was mine. But I don't play the victim, Isabella. I never have. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Isabella looked around the room, her poise unraveling. The warmth of the chandelier now seemed harsh, unforgiving, like a spotlight revealing every imperfection she'd tried to hide. Do you really think you can erase me from his life with a few photographs? Isabella challenged, her voice cracking. He loves me. He said so. Olivia looked at Ethan, who flinched as if burned. Do you, Ethan? She asked him softly. Do you love her? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. Finally, he looked down and shook his head slowly. I was lost. She made it easy to forget things for a while. But love? No, I don't think it ever was. The final blow. Isabella's face collapsed. You coward. She spat, tears threatening to fall. You used me. Ethan didn't reply. Olivia stepped closer, her voice low but unwavering. You will leave this house, Isabella, and if you ever contact Ethan again, or even so much as breathe near our family, I will bury you in legal filings. Fraud, extortion, identity manipulation. Your name will be scorched earth. You don't scare me, Isabella muttered, but the defiance was gone. Then you're a fool, Olivia replied. Isabella clutched her purse, spun on her heel, and stalked toward the door. Her white dress flared as she moved, a once innocent symbol now reduced to a flag of defeat. When the door slammed shut behind her, silence filled the room again. Ethan stood frozen, his shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Olivia. She turned to him slowly, eyes rimmed with unshed tears. Sorry doesn't erase what you did, but it's a start. He nodded. I'll do whatever it takes. I know, she said softly, but first, you'll do nothing. You'll give me space, time, and respect. Under the chandelier, their eyes locked. Not with love, not yet, but with recognition. A battlefield cleared, a reckoning complete. The mistress was gone. The illusions had shattered, and now the wife would decide what came next. The tension in the air had reached a crescendo, so thick it felt suffocating before Isabella's exit. Her eyes had darted between Olivia's unyielding glare and Ethan's haunted expression. She had hoped that by confronting Olivia directly, she could somehow sow discord or confusion, maybe even force Ethan to defend her. Instead, she found herself nakedly exposed, with no shield to hide behind. Ethan had finally spoken, his voice trembling. Isabella, is this true? Did you do all of this to me? A hysterical laugh escaped her. And what about you? Ethan, you're the one who pursued me just as much as I pursued you. Don't pretend you didn't enjoy every moment. Olivia cut in. And what exactly did you enjoy? Ethan, sneaking around behind my back while I carry your child. Her voice cracked just enough to reveal the heartbreak beneath her icy composure. Ethan turned to Olivia, eyes welling with regret. I'm sorry. I was weak, and I let things get out of hand. Weak is an understatement. Olivia snapped. Tears glistened in her eyes, but didn't fall. She swallowed the lump in her throat, fighting for the strength she needed to finish this. The question now is whether there's anything left to salvage. I'm carrying your child. Ethan, the child you pledged to care for. The child whose future you were so willing to jeopardize for a fling. Isabella, desperate to regain some ground before a final dismissal, had squared her shoulders. You're acting like you two never had problems. Ethan told me you two barely spoke. that you were more interested in your charity events and photo shoots than your own husband. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You have no idea how marriage works, do you? We've weathered challenges far more daunting than you. But you, she turned her gaze to Ethan, voice trembling with anger and sorrow. You brought this viper into our home. Ethan stared at the floor, speechless. In that moment, he understood the magnitude of the betrayal, how it wasn't just about sleeping with Isabella. It was about jeopardizing the very foundation of trust that held his marriage together and, by extension, the stable family Olivia and he had hoped to build for their child. Olivia looked at the ring on her finger, a symbol of vows once believed to be unbreakable. The diamond sparkled under the chandelier, mocking her with its eternal luster. She took a shaky breath. Here's what's going to happen. Isabella will leave now. If she ever contacts you again, I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure she faces the full weight of legal consequences for blackmail and fraud. Legal consequences, Isabella had whispered, her bravado diminishing by the second. Yes, Olivia replied, her tone razor sharp. Ethan may have been foolish enough to fund your lifestyle, but I guarantee he has better lawyers than you could ever afford. For a moment, Isabella seemed poised to retaliate, to lash out in a final act of desperation. But the futility was clear. She snatched her purse and stormed toward the door, her white dress swirling around her legs, the final vestige of her illusions. As she disappeared into the night, the mistress in white had never looked more defeated. Ethan and Olivia stood in the living room, the chandelier overhead casting long shadows. They both knew their marriage would never be the same. Now the question was, would they choose to rebuild or bury what remained? In the days that followed, Ethan lived in a fog of self-recrimination. The affair became a specter that haunted every corner of the Hayes estate. Olivia refused to share a bed with him, choosing instead to sleep in the guest suite. He could hear her restless movements through the walls, each muffled footstep a reminder of the chasm he had created. Their once bustling mansion now felt empty, weighed down by guilt and silent anger. Meanwhile, Isabella's departure seemed permanent. No desperate calls or text messages came from her. Ethan wasn't sure if she had left Los Angeles or was simply lying low. But one thing was certain. The swirl of excitement that once lured him had curdled into regret. Olivia found herself in a whirlwind of emotions, fury, heartbreak, relief that she had confronted the issue, and an unyielding determination not to be a victim. Even as her belly grew rounder, she threw herself into philanthropic work, organizing a charity gala at the Ritz-Carlton to raise funds for underprivileged mothers. The irony wasn't lost on her. She, too, was an expectant mother, grappling with financial complexities of her own. If Ethan chose divorce, she knew a bitter legal battle loomed. Yet, she proceeded with unwavering grace, refusing to crumble before the public or her social circle. Ethan tried, in his own stumbling way, to make amends. He wrote heartfelt letters, left flowers at her bedroom door, even spoke to a couple's therapist about potential steps to repair the damage. But Olivia remained distant. She agreed to therapy sessions, if only to see if they could find any salvageable remnants of their former love. Their first therapy session, held in a private office in Westwood, was emotionally excruciating. Olivia confronted Ethan about the depths of betrayal, refusing to allow him to gloss over his actions. He, in turn, opened up about feeling neglected and unfulfilled emotions that neither of them had properly addressed before. Though the conversation was painful, it opened a channel of communication that had been sealed shut for far too long. Weeks passed, bringing them closer to the baby's due date. Olivia's doctor appointments were frequent, her mood oscillating between cautious optimism and deep-seated hurt. Ethan accompanied her each time, clinging to the hope that he could still be a father his child deserved, and perhaps a husband worthy of forgiveness. At one such appointment, they heard the baby's heartbeat through the ultrasound machine. The thumping rhythm filled the room, resonating with such clarity that it momentarily dissolved their hostility. Olivia's eyes filled with tears, and Ethan gently reached for her hand. She allowed the contact, but she did not squeeze back. In that fleeting moment, both realized that life was bigger than their mistakes. Whether they chose to rebuild their marriage or to part ways, they were irrevocably bound by the heartbeat echoing through the monitor, an innocent new life that deserved a stable future. It was a glimmer of hope, fragile yet luminous, hinting that perhaps not everything was lost. Months later, the Hayes estate welcomed a new occupant, a healthy baby boy named Noah. The final weeks of Olivia's pregnancy had been a dance of reconciliation and unresolved tensions. Ethan, determined to support his wife through the birth, had put every effort into regaining her trust, attending therapy sessions, shutting down any avenues of contact with Isabella, and pouring his focus on Olivia's well-being. On a mild afternoon in late spring, Noah came into the world, wailing with the robust cry of a newborn determined to live. The delivery room witnessed the first tentative step toward rebuilding a family shattered by betrayal. Ethan's face lit up with awe as he held his son, tears streaming down his cheeks. Meanwhile, Olivia felt a complex mix of emotions, overwhelming love for her child, and a cautious acknowledgement of Ethan's presence in the room. Once mother and baby were stable, the pair returned to the mansion. Warm sunlight streamed through the nursery's bay windows, illuminating pastel walls decorated with whimsical illustrations of forest creatures. Olivia rocked Noah gently, humming a lullaby that had once been sung to her by her own mother. Ethan stood at a respectful distance, knowing every gesture carried weight in this fragile new beginning. Though they lived under the same roof, the question of their marriage lingered. The therapy sessions had helped them face underlying issues: Ethan's hunger for excitement, Olivia's deep sense of betrayal, and the need for open communication. Yet, trust, once broken, cannot be swiftly mended. They agreed to live as co-parents for now, focusing on Noah while deciding if love could be rekindled or if their paths should diverge. As for Isabella Rossi, she remained a specter on the outskirts of their consciousness. Ethan received a single email from her months after their confrontation, a cryptic message about what could have been, and a half-hearted apology for the pain caused. He deleted it without replying. Rumor had it that she moved to Miami, forging connections with another circle of wealthy men. Mark Sullivan's thorough report, however, had been quietly passed to some of Isabella's previous victims, ensuring her manipulative patterns would not go unnoticed again. Olivia, now dressed in softer, comforting colors for her child's sake, occasionally reflected on her choice to wear black on that fateful night. She was not mourning her marriage, she realized, but the illusions that once veiled her life. In shedding those illusions, she had found the strength to stand on her own. Whether Ethan deserved a second chance will be a decision she'd arrive at on her terms. In her own time. In the lull of early evening, baby Noah stirred in his crib. Olivia and Ethan both moved to tend to him, catching each other's gaze. In the hush that followed, they shared a semblance of unity, two flawed individuals bound by their child's innocence, forging a path forward, even as shadows of the past lingered. The storm had passed, but its echoes remained, reminding them that every relationship is a delicate balance between forgiveness, loyalty, and the capacity to heal. In the end, the mistress's white dress was no match for the wife's unwavering resolve. Cloaked in black, Ethan's moment of weakness nearly cost him everything. But redemption, if it comes at all, demands accountability. Olivia's strength carried her through heartbreak and betrayal, lighting the way for a new life, and perhaps a new start for a family forever changed. What a journey of betrayal, heartache, and a fragile hope for redemption. Will Ethan and Olivia find their way back to each other? Or is their story a cautionary tale of love lost? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this gripping drama kept you on the edge of your seat, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this story with friends who love a good scandal, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable tales. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you're the first to know when our next story drops. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.